we will go ahead and continue our media availabilities for today. We are now joined by Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 Sport Clip Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. We'll go ahead and open up for questions. If you have one, please raise your hand and I will get a mic over to you. We'll start in the back with Zach and then go to Reed.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Denny, congrats on the pole. I'm curious, has Tyler Reddick helped elevate the Toyotas as a whole? Obviously, Joe Gibbs Racing today looked very fast through qualifying. What kind of an impact has Tyler had on the Toyota group as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, he has. I mean, I think certainly, you know, he certainly exposed me and you know, my lack of skills and knew he would. I mean, you always want people that challenge you and challenge you to be better, and I think that when Tyler came over here this year, we knew that he was going to be the bar that we have to set ourselves against. And, you know, when I go to COTA and I'm, you know, in the simulator well more than a second slower than he is, and, you know, then I just think about, all right, how many road courses we got left and how can I cut that down by the time we get to Sonoma, and then how can I cut it down by the time we get to Chicago? It's just a lot of different, you know, ways. It's a process. You're not going to just wake up overnight and be better because someone, you know, you have to see examples. You have to understand. You have to drive the same car that they're driving. So I think that, you know, while Tyler helped a lot, you know, I got to give credit to 2311 really helped me quite a bit this week as well.
We're going to go to Reed and then Bob and then Dustin.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Denny, it seemed like the third lap on the tires was fastest for most guys, and I think that was true for you too. Is that surprising at all?
It was. I mean, you know, he would say otherwise, but Chris was trying to get me unbuckle after our first lap in the final round, and he was like, you know, that's a great day. It's a good starting spot, and I just asked him, like, you don't want me to try again? Like, I feel like maybe I could do it. And so I'm glad that we did try again, but yeah, I mean, the good thing we saw about the tires, though, is they had big fall off after a certain amount of laps. So I thought I saw like 2 seconds or more after 10 laps, which is really good because it's going to allow us to, you know, tires are going to matter. Your pit strategy will matter. And so, yeah, I thought it was all that basically means is we didn't do a good job on our earlier laps. And listen, we're all, you know, none of us are really professional road course racers. We don't do it all the time. There's some that are certainly better than others. But if you can go right back out and run faster, it just means you didn't optimize or do a good enough job your first time out.
We'll go to Bob, then Dustin, and then down here to Steven.
Bob Pockris, Fox Sports. The NASCAR revealed the changes to the cars starting Atlanta from what they saw from the 541 wreck. Then this week we see Gregson out with from a rear impact and a concussion. So where do you feel like they're at, you know, as far as safety, and do the upcoming changes give you hope, and does the Gregson injury give you pause?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, Charlotte was my first true like head-on impact. You know, I don't know that we had those changes in the car for that, but I thought certainly it had some room for improvement. We all knew that it had room for improvement. You know, this is just kind of the evolution process of the next gen. It's just going to take time to get it all right from a competition and a safety perspective. You know, I don't think that we did enough proper testing with it, you know, before we unveiled it. But, you know, it's good to see the changes are getting made, and it, you know, I think we're all confident, especially with the transparency that they're showing with the safety stuff of, you know, here's the videos, here's how it was, here's how it's going to change. The only difference is like, well, what is the cause and effect, right? There's always an effect, you know, as the team owners, I would say, well, that just means we're going to damage more products, and it means it's going to cost us a ton more money. But the safety of the driver is the first and foremost thing, and we'll figure out the rest.
We'll go to Dustin, then Steven, then Jeff in the back.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Have a couple questions. One, Denny, was this race last year? Toyota didn't have a car in the top 15 for the first time since 2007. I know you talked about this, what Tyler brings, but it's not all about just one person.
That's right.
Can you kind of describe or discuss the evolution of where Toyota was a year ago here to where now you've won the first road course race of the year and you have 5 in the top 8 in qualifying?
Yeah, I think that, you know, Tyler is an element of it, but certainly I think our cars are better. I think that last year we were at a pretty big disadvantage on tracks like this, which disadvantage here gave us advantages at other tracks. So it's just kind of, you know, when the cars are so close, you know, if one has an aerodynamic advantage in one spot than another, it's going to be great for one track and not good for another. And that's just the way we developed our car. It was really made to have a big old spoiler on it. And when NASCAR and the drivers wanted to, you know, reduce the downforce, it just made it to where our cars weren't that good. And so we got to revamp that this year. And certainly I think it's more, the whole package is put together more for the Toyotas, and that's what you're seeing.
And also on your podcast this week, when you guys are breaking down the Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, and obviously you talked about how much research you went and going further laps back and studying the SMT, and you even noted, you know, at the point it was, in essence, I guess, almost like a 50-50 call in your mind. So now that you've seen what happened, I guess your reaction to it, and is SMT going to be the be-all, end-all in determining these, or is there a fear of relying too much on it?
I think that I mean, you can't ignore evidence, right? I mean, that's just crazy. If someone's going to have a race suspension, you have to look at all the evidence. I think that they have looked at SMT in the past. It just is not as public as it is right now. But I agree, it was a very 50-50 thing. And did it warrant a suspension? Probably not, even though it looked a little iffy to me, you know, because in my opinion, I looked at the whole scenario. Well, let's go back 3 laps and figure out, was he mad or was he not? He definitely was mad. So it just made it to where, well, then you got to look at intent, right? Is it premeditated or not? Yeah, that matters when you're. Yeah. Oh, trust me, they like to get into intent, for sure. So that all matters. But in the end, they made the right call. I think, you know, I hadn't looked at it until I was right there on the microphone and looking at it, and it's like, what's he doing turning left there? But if you look, you know, it was so 50-50. It really was, and Austin came up a little bit, so you could go either way with it, and I'm glad they hedged on the side of, you know, not making a call when it's that close. You know, when it's a different situation and it's more egregious and obvious, absolutely keep doing what they're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll go to Steven, and then Jeff, and then Lee in the back.
Steven Stump, frontruck.com. Denny, you're the first person named not Kyle Larson to start on pole at Sonoma since 2016, believe it or not. But now that you're starting first, how does the pit strategy change then compared to starting mid-pack, especially since there's no stage cautions here?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a factor for sure. You know, it's up to me to execute good laps and stay up front. That's going to be the biggest thing is making sure that, you know, I keep it on track and keep executing laps like I know how to do. You know, with no stage breaks, it allows us to determine our own strategy. We're not chasing someone, hopefully. Now, if we get passed by a few cars early, then it's still up to us to, you know, do a strategy that keeps us in the race. But now you're not having to give up stage points to flip stages, which is good. So I think it's an opportunity for us to come out of here with a pretty good points day if we just, you know, driver doesn't make mistakes.
All right, thank you.
Go to Jeff, and then Lee.
Denny, this morning we got to look at the 14's counterfeit part, and you know, between that, you know, sort of shaming the team, I guess, publicly, or letting them know what they did, and the massive penalties, obviously. You know, NASCAR is saying that they're trying to change the whole culture, right? Do you think that there comes a point when teams will respond to that and sort of get, you know, sort of scared straight, so to speak, or is it that finding speed is always going to be necessary to be playing in areas that you can't supposed to? Do you see a trend either way there?
I mean, you listen, you know that I think this is a good thing, you know, exposing, and certainly I think that kind of the public shaming should be a deterrent, right? You know, from what I saw, you almost think that, man, that's almost got to be a mistake, you would think, or just, lack of judgment for sure. But but either way, it's not right. He shows you it doesn't fit the template, so it just doesn't fly with us. So I think that it's good to be transparent. Really, again, the things NASCAR is doing to be more transparent on the safety stuff and the technical stuff, I think is all good. I think it's storylines, right? It's what we're talking about. Hey, did you see that or not? Yeah, it's good for our sport, and it educates our fans. So I think that it's a good thing.
We'll go to Lee.
Lee Spencer, catchfence.com. I was just kind of curious. Bubba came in here earlier, and he seems to be in a really good place. And, there have been times when he's a little down on himself, but he's like, it's almost like he's gained a step. He's like, I'm going to take what the card gives me and just do what I need to do. And have you guys been kind of working with him to try to get him to put the negativity behind and just focus forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from results as well. I think that he is a results person, and when he knows that he's capable of winning, I think he's got the confidence now that he's capable of being a successful driver in this series. And so that's just, even when you have bad weeks like last week where you have a failure at the end, he still was competitive enough and being in the top 10 to understand that, man, I'm with a really good team. And I think that that team in general is really working well at improving the drivers, and I think that that's what we're seeing is that, certainly they helped me this week. So I'm just really happy with where he's at and the progression he's made.
And why Sonoma is a traditional road course, does having the kind of speed you have today give you encouragement for when we go to the Chicago street course in Indy?
More so for Indy than the street course. I think that will be a challenge for me personally, but it's just going to come down to reps. How many reps can I get before I get there? That will kind of dictate how successful I think I am at that track. But yeah, I think generally speaking, this is a track where I thought the bulk of my time that I've been missing has been in 3 corners, and I just worked on those and got better. Now, when we go to Chicago, I'm learning a whole new racetrack, so I'm probably going to be a little bit off everywhere. So I think it's just going to take more work to learn it and figure out how I can be better.
Have you done sim or iRacing?
Yeah, iRacing, but not sim yet.
Are there any final questions for Denny? We'll come down here to Bill, and then in the back to Zach, and then right here in the middle, and we'll wrap.
Hi, I'm Bill Sessa of the Napa Valley Register. Just to follow up on what you just said, that you said you worked on 3 corners to get better here. What 3 corners?
I can't say that.
We'll
That's
go to Zach.
proprietary information. But yeah, it's ones that we make a turn at.
We'll go in the back to Zach, and then here in the middle.
Just kind of following up on that Bubba discussion, I'm curious, do you feel like he's arrived as a Cup Series contender week in, week out? Obviously, we've seen what he's done this last month. It seems, to Lee's point, mindset, it seems to be in the right spot. Do you feel like he's arrived yet? Does he need to win in the regular season to make the playoffs first? Obviously, he's gotten wins the last couple of years. Has he arrived?
He doesn't need to win. He just needs to keep doing what he's done the last month and a half. I think that, if you kind of listen to what we were talking about on our ownership calls about what's the strategy for the 23 to get in the playoffs, it was just kind of let's everyone just take a breath here and let's see how this goes for the next month and a half before we start changing our strategy. And then he goes on a run of top 5s and top 10s. So I think consistency still pays, not only to get in the playoffs, but once you're in it. But yeah, I think that contender is probably the right and correct word for him. I think he was a participant for a while, and now he's a contender week in, week out. So that's what we wanted and what we expected, and that's what he's delivering.
Kevin from back to Sacramento. I noticed you also mentioned the Bubba Wallace, all the unknowns, and now he's up in the top 5 consistently. Does that make you have him drive differently, or does he do anything different, or how does that work?
It's a lot. There's a lot of different aspects to being successful, and it's not all about driver skill. It's it's managing races. it's being a leader with your team. There's just so much that goes into it to being successful for sure. You know, again, I'm not here to kind of spill all the secret sauce because it's so hard to be competitive in this league. You know, you want to keep those things to yourself.
All right. Denny, thank you for your time. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.